Take two, this is the second section.
Okay, this is the second one. So obviously, after the crash, a lot of people lost their, Raphael, jobs. Good. You like that one? And these people have made, this had made investments in the stock market also, and people could not pay back their loans, so banks also went down. That's annoying. There we go. So banks lost a lot of money. Banks started closing. So because banks were closing, people lost their lives, savings. I mean, Jasmine, remember 2 weeks ago, what did you do? You texted me and said, go to the what?
Bank.
To take out
cash.
Cash. A lot of people were running to the bank because, oh, the banks are going to close. The banks are going to close. I talked to the teller. They said, yeah, a lot of people are coming to get all their money out of the bank. So this has been happening the last couple of weeks. Obviously not as back as 1929, stock market crash. And here's a good way to remember that it was 1929.
Just remember 1929.
No. Remember the golf course. You got that?
Wait, it keeps moving. Yeah, 1929.
1929 was when the golf course was built. How many holes is it, class?
9. I'm sorry.
I wish I had a tripod.
I think you need to get one. It's hurting my arm. Go ahead.
Well, I don't care if I look like I have a double chin. Just sit down.
Sit down, okay.
Did you get this, though?
They could see it. They'll have to zoom in.
No, forget it.
No, I could get it. It's on there. Look.
That's not close enough. Here, come. Guys, come on.
Okay. I think they've seen, ouch, a lot of this. Okay, all right, there we go. Sorry, guys.
Can they see it?
Yes.
What did you do for class today? We listed Mr. and Mrs. Grady having a fight.
That was not a fight.
That wasn't a fight? Okay. So, Woodstock has 9 holes. They were building it in 1929. It was supposed to be an 18-hole course. They had land and another 9 holes across 375 where Woodstock Elementary School is. In the middle of the crash, in the middle of the building the course, they had the crash, so they were only able to make 9 holes. I've seen the layout, the design for the 18-hole course. So if you went to Woodstock Elementary School, thank the stock market crash. That would not have been there. It would have been an 18-hole course if it wasn't for this crash.
They would have put it somewhere else. Sorry. Go ahead.
You know we're probably going to have to start over.
No.
Jeez. Okay, causes of the depression and the crash. Overproduction. If you make too much of something, what's going to happen to the prices? Nash. Nash isn't over there. She's pretending.
Oh, sorry.
Good. Prices go down. See, I'm glad you're having such a good time, Jasmine. Detention. Lunch detention for you.
I'm making the food, so that'll be hard.
You know, this is a lot like the 1920s farmers we talked about. Europe did not need their crops anymore, so the farmers overproduced. So even though most of the economy was going up during the 1920s, American farmers were having a lot of trouble because they overproduced. When you overproduce something, if you have too many strawberries, you can't sell them, the prices are going to crash. Second reason for causes of depression. Remember, everything on here is going to be on the test next week. We're going to have a test next week. Everything will be on it. High unemployment. That means when jobs go down. Think about now. So many people are trying to get unemployment insurance. They didn't have that in the 1930s. It's almost impossible to get it because how many times have you been on the phone, Josh, trying to get it?
Many times. Hours.
Hours and hours. And by the time now you've pretty much given up?
Almost. I'm going to try again. Normally there are 700,000 people a week who get unemployment, and now there are 10 million people that are trying to get unemployment.
So and here's the thing. Right now is really bad, but the Depression in the 1930s was much, much worse. 25%. Right now, even with 10 million people out, probably unemployment is about 6 or 7%. During the Depression, it got up to 25% unemployment.
I guess the population was lower then, so maybe the who knows what the ratio is, you know what I mean?
No, well, 25% of the workers were out of a job.
Oh, 25%, yeah.
So here's the big thing. It's called the Depression cycle. Write this down. You'll put this inside you times 4, guys. Okay, think about the cycle. People lose their jobs, right? What's the next thing going to happen? They have no money, correct? If you have no money, you can't buy. You lose your job, you don't have any money, no paycheck. It means you can't buy anything. If you can't buy anything, the company...
The problem is, Chris, is that you're getting these little messages on the side of your phone, and hopefully they're not going into the video.
They're not going to go into the video.
The text and stuff? Okay.
No, it won't.
Okay, great.
So you lose your job, you have no paycheck. Because you have no paycheck, you can't buy anything. Because you can't buy anything, the company loses money. Because the company loses money, they have to lay off more people. It's just a cycle. It's like a whirlwind that goes around and around. It gets worse and worse and worse. Okay? That's why the government has passed a $2 trillion stimulus bill, and they're going to be sending people checks because they don't want people to stop buying, because if people stop buying, they'll start the Depression cycle that nobody wants to happen.
Right, and Pelosi also said that they're making it that when they're giving the companies a lot of money, one of the requirements is that the companies won't lay people off.
Nice, nice. Good, good.
Yeah, like the airlines are not allowed to lay people off.
I like that.
Yeah.
So the government's trying to help out by going to send checks to a lot of people if you make out under a certain amount, and they're going to be helping the companies, trying to help both people, both sides. Okay, another third reason on the test, wide gap between the rich and the poor. Are you getting this, Jess?
Yes.
So a wide gap between the rich and the poor, and hopefully for the times 2, this reminds you of the Gilded Age. The Gilded Age that we talked about, Mark Twain called it in the late 1890s. Who did America blame? President Hoover. Adam, are you around? Come on over, we're going to act something out.
Here comes Adam.
Excuse me, sir. I don't have a job. Could I borrow, come over here, sir, so we can get you on the smartphone. Sir, do you have any money I can borrow?
I only have.
You're supposed to lift out your pockets.
Oh.
There's nothing in
so
there.
So you asked me if you can borrow money.
Okay. Can I borrow some money?
No, this is all I got.
Oh, look at those pockets coming out of there like that.
They're Hoover flags.
Hoover flags.
Hoover flags. Oh, young boy, son, lie down. Time for you to go to sleep. Say, I'm cold, Papa.
I'm cold.
Oh, that's okay. Here, let's get you a Hoover blanket.
Oh.
Let's get you a Hoover blanket.
Newspapers were considered Hoover blankets?
Yes.
That's pretty sad.
And number 3. Oh, look, we got a little place to live now, son. Lie down. I'll try to make it where the rain doesn't get you. I'll see you in the morning. Don't worry, Daddy's going to go to the job. I might have to go on a railroad and try to find a job 1,000 miles away, but I'm going to try to get a job for the family. You'll be okay. If I'm not home, when you wake up, if I'm not around, don't worry. I'll see you in a few months, I hope. So that's called a what class?
Hoover House.
Hooverville.
Hooverville.
Where a lot of these houses, these shacks started coming up, they called them Hoovervilles.
That was the Hooverville store, that board right there.
Okay. Interesting facts about Hoover. Hoover was actually born to a Quaker family, and he lost both his parents when he was pretty young, so he was an orphan, he and his siblings. He went and lived with some aunts and uncles. He'd go from place to place. Somehow he ended up in California, went to Stanford University, and the rest is history. Another thing about him, he used to love to fish. People think of him as like the bad guy. It's all because of Hoover. But really, he was a brilliant guy, and as you know from before, he helped during World War I with distributing food and got a lot of respect for that. Another reason Hoover was disliked is because you saw in the video, the World War I veterans wanted their bonus that they hadn't gotten for like 14 years, that haven't got it, and now they're out of work. And when they came and marched from Washington, D.C., their places where they were staying, their tents were put on fire. 2 of them died. I think a kid died. And it just made Hoover look really bad the way he handled it. Okay? All right, so we had an election in 19... another thing for the number 3. What did he do, class? Was he a Republican or Democrat? Remember, all 3 presidents in the 1920s, Harding, Coolidge, Hoover, they were all Republicans. Historically, have Republicans more been laissez-faire or more government hands-on or government regulation? For the most part, more laissez-faire, trying to stay out of the economy, let businesses... The business of America is business. That was Calvin Coolidge's famous quote. So Hoover didn't do a heck of a lot. He tried to help some companies because he thought if he helped the companies, it's called trickle down. If you help the companies, then that money will trickle down to the unemployed workers. And that didn't work enough. So come the election of 1932, Hoover versus Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And you can imagine who won. I want to get a couple pictures, Jez, if you can come up to get these pictures of... Here's a good one for it. Black Tuesday, it's called, October 29th, 1929. $100 will buy this car, must have cash, lost all in the stock market. Here's a nice picture of Hoover. Quaker family, he was an orphan, very successful. And in a way, he was the wrong person at the wrong time. It was, he didn't do anything different than Harding and Coolidge. But when everything popped, think of it like this. The economy's getting, economy's building. Remember, people are buying stuff on credit. People are buying stock on credit by margin, speculation, stock market. So the economy's getting better. Harding's in charge, Coolidge is in charge, Hoover's in charge. Oh my gosh.
Okay, that wasn't so bad.
So
It was Adam's birthday, so we have balloons left over.
Yeah. So FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, won by 472 to 59 electoral college votes.
Wow.
Landslide. And when he won in 1936, it was even by more than that. It was the hugest margin in history. 23 million to 16 million. Popular vote. FDR at 23. Let's get a picture of FDR. Come check this out, Jess. FDR, when he was 39, got polio. There was no polio vaccine back then. Okay, guys? No polio vaccine. Became crippled. This is one of the only pictures you'll ever see of him in a wheelchair, because it was taken by a family member. Back then, journalists were so much more respectful. While he was president, they had a rule: don't ever take any pictures of FDR in a wheelchair. Just wait till he stands up. He's got braces on. He can stand up and hold on to things. But believe it or not, they were so respectful. They didn't take pictures of him in a wheelchair or when he was with his braces. This was a family picture, one of the only pictures. Okay?
Or he's trying to
That's my son.
put like 2 fingers up for whatever reason.
Yeah, get a picture of him if he's not
Oh,
doing that.
he's still in his. Okay, so I'm gonna do this so they could see this
Okay.
board.
A quick something, yeah, just
I guess you have this board.
yeah, but keep that while I talk.
Okay.
Is it coming well?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got this light on, this big shiny light there.
Yeah. They could see
I'll
it.
do it. I'll hold it and talk.
You
So
wanna do the rest by yourself?
no, I just want them to be able to get it a little bit while I talk. So guys, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, you've heard of Teddy Roosevelt, okay? Franklin was the 5th cousin of Teddy. He actually married a Roosevelt. He married his cousin. You'd be like, gross, Mr. Grady. He married his cousin, but it was not as unusual back then as you might think. In fact, there are people, I was just talking to somebody the other day that knows somebody who married their cousin.
Were they first cousins?
5th cousins.
Oh, that's not so bad.
No, not so bad.
That's okay.
So 5th cousins.
People still marry their fifth cousins.
Oh, in
though.
Italy and other places, don't you know people who've married their cousins?
No.
Yes, you do. You knew that.
No, my friend dated her cousin.
Oh, dated. Okay, I thought they got married. So
But that was her first cousin.
Teddy and Franklin both were New York governors. New York governors, Teddy. Teddy was Franklin's best man. I mean, no, Teddy gave away Eleanor Roosevelt when she married Franklin Roosevelt. And Franklin wrote that it was okay, but Teddy got all the attention, and he kind of wanted him and his wife to get the attention on his wedding. But because Teddy gave away Eleanor, a lot of the newspapers wrote about that more than the actual wedding. You've heard of FDR High School. Franklin Roosevelt's family grew up in Hyde Park for the most part.
Beautiful house.
Beautiful house. You've seen the museum there.
Yeah, we went to see the house.
His car is underneath, and if you've ever seen the car in the museum, it's got the brake and everything on the steering wheel, so that he could drive without using his legs, the accelerator, everything. Okay. All right, back to you, Jess. Let's finish this up for them.
Okay.
So, I don't think they can see the board.
They could see it.
Can you guys see the board from there?
Yeah, they could see it. Look, it has less shine. You could see it.
Okay. So, one of the first things in 1933, Franklin had a bank holiday. Close all the banks. Why would he do that? Because everybody, like we said before, was rushing to the bank to get their money out. And if you know about banking, if you deposit money, that money doesn't stay in the bank for the most part. They have to have a certain amount in the bank, but the banks make money by loaning out the money. Say they give you 2% savings, and then they get 6% by loaning out, or whatever percent. That's how they make the money. So when people ran to get their money out of the bank, the money was not there after a while. So FDR was smart. He closed the banks. And after a week, he said, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Write that down, everybody. FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Now it's up to $250,000.
I think it's 500,000.
Is it 500 now?
I think it's 500.
It was 250 last time I looked.
Really? I think it might have gone up to 500.
Maybe it went up. Okay. So the New Deal, the whole thing with the New Deal is, remember, Hoover didn't do that much. Look, we've had depressions before. 1893, we had a depression. The economy will get out of it. Let it run its course. We'll get out of it. That's more of a conservative way of thinking. Being more liberal, very liberal, and a Democrat, FDR said, no, we're going to have government intervention. Government intervention, and it's going to be by deficit spending. Because you might be like, well, the government doesn't have the money to give all these programs. Well, they're just going to go in debt. That's what's happening now. Our government is $23 trillion and counting in debt, and we're just signed a bill for $2 and probably be $3 or $4 trillion to help with this virus, help stimulate the economy and help people get stuff for the virus. So basically, it's like the government's using credit card and getting more and more and more in debt. That's called
In debt to who?
That's the problem. Exactly. China. We're in debt to China.
Wait, so do we borrow money from China for our own stuff?
We do owe money to China, yes. Okay, stop it.